Hey YouTube, this is Jared with the internet's most passionate show about taxes. Yep, that's right, taxes. Today we're going to answer the question, what's the difference between injured and innocent spouse? This is something that messes a lot of people up. And if you're thinking about filing either an injured spouse claim or an innocent spouse claim, you really need to know the difference here because the IRS does not give you, they don't give you any, and I mean any leeway if you get these wrong. Traditionally, they'll just tell you that you did it wrong, and now you're past your chance time wise to be able to do it. It actually somebody had to actually go all the way to district court with a pro bono lawyer to be able to actually get what the tax court did undone around something like that. So this is really hard to fix. This is not a situation you want to be in. So we're going to answer that question in about 2 minutes, but a little bit about the show first. So I make this show so that you can stress a little bit less about tax issues and sleep better at night. I'm a tax advisor in the industry, so I know kind of the effect that this has on people. As I said, my name's Jared, and this is a YouTube show about taxes, tax debt, personal finance. I answer people's questions, sometimes your questions, and I occasionally give away free stuff, free information. Have interviews with kind of other people who are either in my industry or in ancillary industries. And we give all that information away for free. You know, if you were to sit down with a certified public accountant or an enrolled agent or a tax lawyer or some other professional, you know, getting all these questions answered, you know, would cost you thousands of dollars in billable hours or flat fees, depending on how they did it. But we give it away for free on here with information and sometimes quality resources as well. And I do that because I have seen that not everybody necessarily has the funds to pay a tax advisor. And sometimes also it doesn't make sense to. You know, if the claim's too small, somebody should really just try to handle it themselves. You know, and if they lose, they would still lose less than if they hired someone. I also know there's more need out there than there is pro bono time available. You know, I volunteer a lot to try to help you know, people who can't pay, but the reality is, especially where I am, there's a whole lot more kind of need than there are available people. And so this is there to help people navigate that as well if they run into that kind of situation. And then the last kind of reason we do this is there's a lot of bad information on the internet, and I wanted people to be able to have a quality source of information where they could get the right information. Okay, so now we're going to answer that question, the difference between injured spouse and innocent spouse. So this is one that people get confused. And as I alluded to before, there was actually there was a big court case about this. Actually, I'm not actually sure about the date, but there was a court case about this where someone filed the wrong one and they had to go all the way to district court. Actually, the tax court ruled against them. And then the district court basically smacked down the tax court and said, you know, these are very similar names, and in this case, the petitioner didn't have a high level of education. You know, wasn't well versed in this kind of stuff. Didn't have any reason to know. And these are very similar names, and it's known that people get these confused. So they ended up she ended up being able to fix some of that, but it took going all the way to district court to be able to do that. So this is not something you want to get wrong. So the key thing to remember, one of the ways I remember the difference between these, and I tell other people, is so in the case of innocent spouse, you didn't know about it. You know, your spouse kind of withheld something from you that could technically be your debt. You know, you had the income or they had the income and you filed a joint return. So you're basically what innocent spouse is saying is that you know, I didn't know anything about it. My spouse didn't tell me. I shouldn't be liable for this. So the kind of place that this might come up with is if somebody files a joint return with their spouse and then later on they get audited and they find out that, you know, their spouse overstated deductions. That would be an example. And so in the audit, they adjusted that. And then because of that, they owed taxes. You know, that person could file as innocent spouse to have that tax debt potentially taken off, not be collected from them. It's potentially how that could go. But you really have to prove that you have like no knowledge that this was happening. And, you know, the standards are, they're going to look at your education level. They're going to look at your financial background. They're going to look if you had reason to know, if you signed that return and you saw on there that your spouse said you were making 10,000 and you're living in a house that there's no way 10,000 can fund that, they're going to hold that as a factor against you. Now, injured spouse is when you have some of your refund money, your withholding, gets taken to satisfy a past due tax debt of the spouses that you are not liable for. So, like, if you get married and your spouse owes taxes, that's what injured spouse is for. It's to make sure they don't take your refund to satisfy your spouse's past due tax debt. Innocent is you owe the tax and you want to be separated from it because you prove your innocence, essentially, and say, I don't want to owe that tax. And there are different types, and there are different ways, there are different flavors of innocent spouse. You can get equitable relief. It's inequitable for the taxpayer to pay this. You can, get separation of liability relief. There's all kinds of like different technical ones in there that I'm not going to get into today. I actually know a tax lawyer that I'm friends with, and we'll eventually do a joint series on that together. So he's going to really go into detail about kind of the different types of innocent spouse relief. That's one of the things that he specializes in, and he's really, really, really good at it. His name's Tom Groth. He's down in Connecticut, actually, southern-ish Connecticut. But he's an attorney, and one of the things he specializes in is in innocent spouse. He's a great, 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 great resource. I've asked him a bunch of questions about some of the nuances of that I don't deal with as much on a regular basis. I deal with these, occasionally and do them, and kind of for basic level ones, there isn't an issue. But he's really there for, if you've really got a really serious case around this, he's the person to talk to. So that's why we're going to have him come up or come on the show and talk to him about that eventually. So if you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel, ask us a question. If we see you guys asking questions, we're going to likely fire this up same day we see it, answer that question, and get out an episode specially for you. And assuming you don't tell us not to, we'll give you a shout out as well. We'll mention you in here that it was your question. And then the only other thing, other than that, I kind of want to know about one thing about these. Actually, I didn't mention this. This is my question. I kind of skipped it. But one of the things that really makes having someone like Tom, for example, or even a practitioner in general help with some of these claims is kind of knowing the administrative default for these. So an example of that for innocent spouse is that the IRS routinely, kind of with nondescript language, rejects innocent spouse claims. So, no matter what your case is, no matter how good it is, their first action is to be like, nope, we're summarily rejecting this. You can appeal it if you want. And so they do that to people. And, frankly, if you don't know that, the reality is that you're probably going to drop your case. And if you have a general practitioner, they're probably going to go, well, if they don't know that the IRS does that, they're probably going to think you're sunk too. And I kind of want to know what you think about that. What do you think about the fact that the IRS kind of routinely dismisses these claims without even really looking at them because they just do it to everyone? What are your thoughts on that? Is that right? Is that a good budget saving method? Is that a good way to make sure that people pay their taxes and that the government's coffers stay full? Is it kind of unfair to the average taxpayer who doesn't know that? What are your thoughts? Is that just? Is it right? I'd love to hear what you think. And again, if you've got any questions, put them down there, and we'll fire them up. Quite possibly the same day we'll fire up the system and we'll answer them. So that's all. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And this is Jared with Tax Relief 101, and I'll see you guys soon. That's all. Bye.